On the first night of their honeymoon, the new bride tells her husband, "I have a confession to make. I'm not a virgin. I've been with one other guy." "Oh, yeah? Who was the guy?" "Tiger Woods, the golfer." "Well, he's rich, famous and handsome." "I can understand that." The couple then makes passionate love. When they finish, the husband gets up and walks to the telephone. "What are you doing?" asks the wife. "I'm hungry. I'm calling room service." "Tiger wouldn't do that." "Oh, yeah? What would Tiger do?" "He'd come back to bed and do it a second time." The husband drops the phone and makes love to his wife a second time. When they finish, he goes back to the phone. "What are you doing now?" she asks. "I'm still hungry, so I'm going to ring room service for some food." "Tiger wouldn't do that." "Oh, yeah? What would Tiger do?" "He'd come back to bed and do it one more time." The husband puts the phone down and heads back to bed. Exhausted after the third lovemaking session, he shuffles back to the phone and starts to dial. The wife asks, "Are you calling room service?" "No. I'm calling Tiger Woods to find out what's par for this hole." A psychologist is conducting a group therapy session on 3 young mothers and their small children. When everyone is in the room, he starts by telling the mothers that the reason they are there is because they all have extreme addictions. He goes on to say that their actions are so strong they have even named their children after them. To the first mother he says, "You have an addiction to sweets. This addiction is so strong, you've named your candy." To the second mother he says, "You have an addiction to money. This addiction is so strong you've named your daughter Penny." As he looks at the third mother, she quickly stands up, grabs her son's hand and says, "Come on D***K, we're going home." The Aussie, the Yank and the Canadian were having a bullshit session on this cruise ship. The Aussie said, "In Australia we have sheep that are so big they take all day to be shorn." The Yank said, "That's nothing. In Texas our cattle are so big the steaks have to be turned with a forklift." The Canadian said, "That's nothing. We have women with pussies this big." He then stretched his hands so wide it'd do the biggest fish justice. "I can't believe you, mate," the Aussie remarked. "How do you screw them then?" asked the Yank. "They stretch, man, they stretch." A lad was showing off his new sports car to his girlfriend. She was thrilled at the speed. "If I do 180 miles per hour, will you take off your clothes?" he asked. "Yes," said his adventurous girlfriend. And as he gets up to 180, she peeled off all her clothes. Unable to keep his eyes on the road, the car skidded onto some gravel and flipped over. The girl was thrown clear, but he was jammed beneath the steering wheel. "Go and get help," he cried. "But I can't. I'm and my clothes are gone." "Take my shoe," he said, "and cover yourself." Holding the shoe over her pubes, the girl ran down the road and found a service station. Still holding the shoe between her legs, she pleaded to the service station proprietor, "Please help me. My boyfriend's stuck." The proprietor looked at the shoe and said, "There's nothing I can do. He's too far." One day Jimmy John went into a brothel on the west coast of Canada. He was greeted by a stunning hostess that politely asked how they can be of service. Jimmy, with his Newfoundland accent, says, "I would like to see Peggy Sue." The hostess replies, "Okay, she is just finishing up and will be with you momentarily." Peggy Sue comes out and leads Jim John into the back where she immediately gets right to business. Peg says, $100 for a BJ and $200 for the full meal deal. Jimmy hands her $200 and she rocks his world. The next day, Jim comes back at the same time and asks the same hostess to see Peggy Sue. This time, Peg was on standby and ready. Peggy, remembering Jimmy, asked him if he wanted to do the same as the day before. Jim nods, hands Peg 2 C-notes and away they go. The third day, Jim is back. The hostess says, "Let me guess, you're here to see Peggy Sue." Jimmy replied a yes.
Bye.
The hostess directed him down the hall to the back room where she was. Peggy, now warming up to Jimmy, starts to get into a little small talk with him. She asks Jimmy John, "Where are you from?" Jim proudly says, "St. John's, Newfoundland." Peggy's expression shows even more curiosity as she says, "So am I." "What neighborhood do you live in?" Jim replies, "East Meadows." Startled, Peggy Sue says, "My parents live in East Meadows." Jimmy John says, "I know. They're next door to me and asked me to bring you $600. A couple had been happily married for years. The only friction in their marriage was the husband's habit of farting loudly every night before he fell asleep and again every morning when he awoke. The noise would wake his wife and the smell would make her eyes water and make her gasp for air. She would plead with him to stop ripping off because it was making her sick. He told her he couldn't stop it and that it was perfectly natural. She told him to see a doctor, as she was concerned that one day he would blow his guts out, to which he would only laugh. The years went by and he continued to blast away. Then one Christmas morning, as she was preparing the turkey for dinner and he was upstairs sound asleep, she looked at the bowl where she had put the turkey innards and neck, gizzard, liver, and all the spare parts, and a malicious thought came to her. She warmed the innards just enough to take off the chill, then took the bowl and went upstairs where her husband was sound asleep. Gently pulling back the bed covers, she pulled back the elastic waistband of his underpants and emptied the bowl of turkey guts into his shorts. Sometime later, she heard her husband wake with his usual trumpeting, which was followed by a blood-curdling scream and the sound of frantic footsteps as he ran into the bathroom. The wife could hardly control herself as she rolled on the floor laughing, tears in her eyes. After years of torture, she reckoned she had got him back pretty good. About 20 minutes later, her husband came downstairs in his blood-stained underpants with a look of horror on his face. "Honey, you were right," he said. "After all these years you have warned me and I didn't listen to you. God, I feel terrible." "What do you mean?" asked his wife, biting her lip. "Well, you always told me that one day I would end up farting my guts out, and today it finally happened."
Oh no.
His wife exclaimed, doing her best to hold back the laughter. "Are you okay, honey?" "Yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable," he said with a moan, "but by the grace of God and some Vaseline, I think I got most of them back in." Hey there, I put a lot effort into making these videos, so please subscribe for more jokes and stay happy. Thank you.